The Muladi were Muslims of local descent or of mixed Berber, Arab, and Iberian origin, who lived in Al-Andalus during the Middle Ages. They were also called Muslima. In broader usage, the word Muwalad is used to describe Arabs of mixed parentage, especially those not living in their ancestral homelands. Etymology. The Spanish, Portuguese and Catalan words Muladi, Muladi or Muladita are derived from the Arabic Muwalad. The basic meaning of Muwalad is a person of mixed ancestry, especially a descendant of an Arab father and a non-Arab mother, who grew up under the influence of an Arabic society and were educated within the Islamic culture. Muladi is the Spanish form of the term Muwaladun, referring to Arabic-speaking Muslims of Hispanic origin who showed the same behavior patterns as those rebels of Arab and Berber origin who rebelled against Arab rule. Muwalad is derived from the root word walid, a direct Arabic transliteration of waw, lam, dal. Walid means descendant, offspring, scion, son, boy, young animal, young one. Muwalid referred to the offspring of Muslim men and foreign, non-Muslim women. The term Muwaladin is sometimes used in Arabic to this day to describe the children of Muslim fathers and foreign mothers. According to Dozy, Muwalad means anyone who, without being of Muslim origin, is born among the Muslims and has been raised as an Arab. The word, according to him, does not necessarily imply Arab ancestry, either paternal or maternal. According to the Dictionary of the Real Academia Española, Muladi means Christian Spaniard who, during the Islamic domination in Spain, embraced Islam and lived among the Muslims, while Bernards and Nawas say the plural form of the word seems to be restricted to Al-Andalus, almost exclusively to the areas of Merida, Granada, Seville and Jaaquten. Muladi has been offered as one of the possible etymological origins of the still current Spanish and Portuguese term mulatto, denoting a person of white and black ancestry. History. In Islamic history, Muwaladun designates in a broader sense non-Arab Muslims or the descendants of converts. In the Muslim-ruled parts of the Iberian Peninsula, parts of the indigenous until then Christian population converted to Islam in the 8th and 9th centuries. In the 10th century a massive conversion of Christians took place, so that Muladis comprised the majority of the population of Al-Andalus by the century's end. However, the majority of Muwalads had embraced Islam early, but retained many pre-Islamic customs and characteristics. Conversion to Islam was encouraged by the Umayyad caliphs and emirs of Cordoba, but it was not forced. Many Christians converted to Islam to avoid the jizya tax which they were subjected to as dhimmish. Conversion to Islam also opened up new horizons to the native Christians, alleviated their social position, ensured better living conditions, and broadened their scope for more technically skilled and advanced work. The Christians who embraced Islam became mawali, or clients attached to an Arab tribe, and as such, were thoroughly Islamized, adopting the Islamic dress code, customs, and language. The Muwalads were also called Muslimas and Elches, in reference to the society from which they sprang. They later were denominated Al-Jamiyados because of their non-Arabic tongue, that is, the Mozarabic languages. Through the cultural Arabization of Muladis and their increasing intermarriage with some Berbers and Arabs present in Iberia, the distinctions between the different Muslim groups became increasingly blurred in the 11th and 12th centuries. The populations mixed with such rapidity that it was soon impossible to distinguish ethnically the elements of foreign origin from the natives. Thus they merged into a more homogeneous group of Andalusi Arabs, generally also called Moors. The Muwalads primarily spoke Andalusian Arabic, along with a wide variety of Iberian Romance languages. Andalusian Arabic was a mixture of Iberian languages and Classical Arabic, though derived especially from Latin. This local dialect of Arabic was also spoken by the Berbers and Arabs from the 9th century onwards. In the process of acculturation, Muwallids may well have adopted an agnatic model of descent, but without abandoning the bilaterality of late Roman kinship. According to Abu Ja'far ibn Harun of Trujillo, a vast but silent majority of Muladi Muslims thrived especially in the extreme Madura region of Spain. Among the Muwalladun were the freeborn, the enfranchised, and slaves. A significant part of the Muwalladun was formed by freed slaves. These were the Sarkalabar, or Slavs, who became an important social group in Al-Andalus during the 10th and 11th centuries. Upon adopting the ethnic name of their patrons, the emancipated slaves gradually forgot their own ethnic origin. The Slavic Muslim slaves were the Sarkalabar, led by Ali ibn Yusuf, who profited from the progressive crumbling of the Umayyad Caliphate's superstructure to gain control over the province of Dinia. The Sarkalabar managed to free themselves and gain dominion over the Taifa, which extended its reach as far as the Balearic Islands, and their capital, Medina Mecca. The intermarriage of foreign Muslims with native Christians made many Muwallids mindless of their Iberian origin. As a result, the descendants and many descendants of Christian converts forgot the descent of their ancestors and assumed forged Arab genealogies. However, there were a few who were proud of their Roman and Visigothic origins. These included the Banu Angelino and Banu Sabrico of Seville, Banu Qasi of Aragon, Banu El Longo and Banu Carbchino. Several Muwallad nobles also used the name Al-Quti, and some may have been actual descendants from the family of the Visigothic king of Hispania, Witiza. The conversion of the native Christians to Islam did not mean the total erasure of previous beliefs and social practices. There is some evidence of a limited cultural borrowing from the Christians by the Muwalladun and other Muslims in Al-Andalus. For instance, the Muslims' adoption of the Christian solar calendar and holidays was an exclusively Andalusi phenomenon. In Al-Andalus, the Islamic lunar calendar was supplemented by the local solar calendar, which was more useful for agricultural and navigational purposes. Like the local Mozarabs, the Muslims of Al-Andalus were notoriously heavy drinkers. The Muslims also celebrated traditional Christian holidays, sometimes with the sponsorship of their leaders. Despite the fact that such fraternization was generally opposed by the ulama, the Muslims also hedged their religious devotions through the use of Roman Catholic sacraments. Many Muwallids held key posts in the departments of civil administration, justice and the armed forces. Amrus ibn Yusuf, a Muwallid who was originally from Huescar, was appointed governor of Toledo by Hakam I in 797. Towards the end of the 11th century, the Muwalladun held distinctive posts in the judicial departments. The Caliph of Cordoba, Abd ar-Rahman III, once bestowed the post of chief Qadi of Cordoba on a Christian convert, whose parents were still Christian, and the Fuqaha found much difficulty in dissuading him. The secretary of the Cordoban emir, Abdallah, was a Muwallid. The commander of the Cordoban force in the Battle of Alhandega against the Zamorans in 938 was a neo-Muslim Slavic general named Najda. The 10th century Muwallid historian Ibn al-Qushayr was descended directly on the maternal side from the Visigothic king Witiza. In about 889 a ship carrying 20 Berber Muwallid adventurers from Pecane near Almeria established a fortress in Fraxinet, on the Gulf of Saint-Tropez in Provence. They spoke both Latin and Arabic. Several Muwalladun became rich and powerful magnates by means of trade, agriculture, and political activity. The Muwallids of the town the Christians called Elvira, after the former Iberian name of Gilbera, had become so powerful during the reign of Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Umayyad that they rose under a chieftain called Nabil and successfully drove the Moors out of the city. The Banu Qasi dynasty, which ruled the upper Ebro Valley in the 9th and 10th centuries, became strong enough to break free from the control of the Umayyad dynasty of Cordoba and turn from a semi-autonomous governorship to an independent taifa. The Muwaladun were the mainstay of the economic framework of the country. Together with the Mozarabs, they constituted the productive classes, which were craftsmen and small tradesmen in the towns, and farmers and laborers in the rural countryside. However, they were inferior to the Arabs and Berbers in social status. Prominent positions in government and society were usually not available to individuals of Muladi descent. In spite of the Islamic doctrine of equality and brotherhood of Muslims, the Muwaladun were often looked down upon with the utmost contempt by the Arab and Berber aristocrats and were usually pejoratively referred to as the sons of slaves. The Muwalids, in turn, in spite of their profession of faith, despised the Arabs, whom they viewed as colonialists and foreign intruders. This mutual feeling of hatred and suspicion provoked frequent revolts and led the Muwalids to support the Abbasid political agents, the preachers of Shu'ubiyya, and subversive activities against the Umayyad rule in Iberia. The Shu'ubiyya of Al-Andalus were active like the Arabs in promoting Arab Islamic culture and language and claimed their integration with the Arab ethnic groups. The Shu'ubiyya movement demanded equality of power, wealth and status for non-Arab Berbers and the Muwaladun from the Arabs. Some judges of Huskar upheld the cause of the Muwaladun in the beginning of the 10th century, and a literary epistle of the middle of the 11th century repeated arguments of Eastern Shu'abite writers. In Al-Andalus, the large numbers of Christians adopting Islam prompted concern among the authorities about the weakening of the tax base and further inflamed resentment towards the Muwalids. The Muwalids were in almost constant revolt against the Arab and Berber immigrants who had carved out large estates for themselves, farmed by Christian serfs or slaves. The most famous of these revolts were led by a Muwalid rebel named Umar ibn Hafsun in the region of Malaga and Ronda. Ibn Hafsun ruled over several mountain valleys for nearly 40 years, having the castle Bobastro as his residence. He rallied disaffected Muwalids and Mozarabs to his cause. Ibn Hafsun eventually renounced Islam with his sons and became a Christian, taking the name Samuel, and proclaimed himself not only the leader of the Christian nationalist movement, but also the champion at the same time of a regular crusade against Islam. However, his conversion soon cost him the support of most of his Muwalid supporters who had no intention of ever becoming Christians, and led to the gradual erosion of his power. There were also other Muwalid revolts throughout Al-Andalus. In the Elvira region, for instance, discord sprang up between the Muwalids and Moors, the latter being led by Sawar ibn Hamdub, and the poet Sa'ad ibn Judi, both of whom fluctuated between insurrection against Abdallah and submission to him. In Seville, the second largest city after Cordoba, there was a vicious feud between the two Arab aristocratic families, Banu Hajjaj and Banu Khaldun, and two Muwalid noble families, Banu Angelino and Banu Sabrico, which finally left Ibrahim ibn Hajjaj as the ruler of an independent city-state. In 805, the Muwalids of Cordoba, incited by certain theologians, revolted against the Umayyads under Hakimai, but the uprising was suppressed. In 814, there was a second revolt of Muwalids in Cordoba, and this time the revolt was put down with the utmost severity, and resulted in the expulsion of 9,500 Muwalids from Cordoba, with over 1,500 going to Alexandria and 8,000 to Fez. In 858, there was a Muwalid revolt in Merida, led by Ibn Marwin. The Muwalids complained of the taxation of their lands as if they were still Christian. The revolt's outcome was the defeat of Ibn Marwin. Merida was subdued, but the center of revolt soon moved to Badajoz. The Muwalids were sometimes assisted by the local Mozarab population, and occasionally by the Christian powers in their revolts. For instance, when the Muwaladun of Toledo revolted, aided by the large Mozarabic population of the city, Ordino I of Asturias promptly responded to their appeal for help, but the emir's forces were routed by the Toledans and Asturians on the Wadi Selit in 854. Many minor rebels from among the Muladi leadership took possession of various sites, their descendants eventually becoming semi-independent emirs. These included Ubaydallah ibn Umayyu ibn Shalia in Shumantan, Said ibn Mastana in Bagu, Khair ibn Shakir in Shadar, Said ibn Hudhail in Al-Muntliyan, Daysam ibn Ishaq in Murcia and Luarca, Abd al-Malik ibn Abd al-Jamal in Bihar and Murtula in Portugal, Bakr ibn Yahya in Shantamariyat al-Ghab, Muhammad ibn Umar ibn Khattab ibn Angelino of Seville rebelled against Abdurrahman III. On the western frontier of Al-Andalus, the Muwaladun and Berber families divided control of the region containing Merida, Badajoz, and their environs. Famous Muladi: Abu Humayya, Abu al-Hasan ibn Ali al-Khalaysadi, Abu Hafs, Abu Ishaq Ibrahim al-Zarqali, Abu Jafar ibn Harun al-Turjali, Abu Tor of Huskar, al-Tutali, al-Udri, Amrus ibn Yusuf, Ibn al-Qushia, Ibn al-Yayyab, Ibn Artafiz, Ibn Amar, Ibn Faradai, Ibn Ghassiyar, Ibn Hazm, Ibn Marwin, Ibn Kuzman, Muhammad al-Tawil of Huskar, Musa ibn Qasi,